Move right along and jump right back into Rhino here. All right, so we have our render that's in the perspective view that you see in the top right corner. How many of you know how to flatten the model and get just the line work?
Make 2D.
Yeah, right. Yeah, make 2D. So it's a pretty simple thing. Luckily, right now I've already got my model grouped, so when I click on it, it's all one big object. You have some options. What I want to show you is how to control which geometry you want to use Make 2D for, and which ones you don't. If you don't know exactly what you want to show in the drawing, or in the render rather, as a vector graphic, the best bet is to make sure that you just export all of them on separate layers, and then you can just turn certain layers off. Okay, so I mean, you need to be very careful about that. The one thing, though, that I want to caution you about are ISO curves. ISO curves are very distracting. How many of you know what an ISO curve is? None of you. Okay, that's surprising. So the ISO curves are basically these little cross members that kind of split the surfaces. It's a NURBS thing. I don't know why they do it. It's a little distracting. It actually slows down your computer, too. So if you have any issues with your model running slow, just select all of your geometry like this, and in Properties under the Object menu, huh?
We don't.
Yeah, okay, so you didn't know that they were called ISO curves?
Yes.
Okay, all right, great. So anyway, you want to just check that off, and that's going to make it run a little bit faster. You won't see those extra lines, and when you do Make 2D, those ISO curves won't show up as geometry as well. So, and I think that for vector raster graphics, that's critical. So what I'm going to do is just select everything in my model. Well, be very careful about that actually, but I'm going to select everything that's visible in the view that I'm rendering, with the exception of that guy. Select everything there. I'm going to say Make 2D, and we're going to maintain source layers. Let's see. I'm only showing, I'll click on hidden lines. I usually don't do hidden lines. It's not, for architectural renderings, hidden lines are not usually that useful, but I'll turn them on just in case I want them. So that's all I need to do. I'm just going to hit OK. This one might take a while because my geometry is really intense, but if you don't have a lot of really crazy geometry, it might not take that long. I'll pause while this processes. All right, guys, can we rein it back in? So I wanted to show you what it should look like. I guess my other file must be corrupted or something because it's not functioning. It's not functioning for rendering. It's not functioning for Make 2D. So I'll probably create a new file for us to work on moving forward. But anyway, so I re-rendered this, and I mean, it's really grainy, but you'll get the idea. But anyway, so I rendered it. I went back into Rhino and I did a Make 2D, okay? And it's going to look like this. It should have all of the layers that you had set up, okay? So it's going to get really dense. It's going to get really crazy. But anyway, so that's what we're going to be working with. What we do is we export this as a DWG, and that DWG is going to retain the layers, and then we're going to bring that into Illustrator and keep those layers, and then I'll show you the method for a quick method of modifying those. So you just go to File, Export Selected. I'm just dumping them as names here, so I'm going to call this one Render BG. I hope you guys pick a more creative name, more descriptive name. Whoops, I exported that as a 3DM, didn't I? Export. Make sure you change your file type to DWG. Render BG. Okay, so there are a couple things to consider about this. You could just use the default, but 2004 lines is like a pretty standard format. It works very well when importing it into Illustrator. So I would suggest use 2004 lines. Okay, so that's the export process. That's all we need to do is just hop in, do a Make 2D, and export all the line work, and then we're ready to start applying it to this. It does get a little weird when you have to sort of like crop and shape it, but I'll show you the basics here. One thing I want to point out is even though that AutoCAD file, when I open it in Illustrator, so let me just open Render BG. I'll just do a scale to fit artboard. It's going to look like that. It's going to take the default artboard and it's just going to squeeze it and fit it on there. That's theoretically not too bad. We could work with that, but I want to just point out that you've got all of these layers here, and there are quite a few of them, quite a few layers. So it's really important that you can see all of those. But when I go over here to this file, if I go to File, Place, and I place it, and I scale to fit artboard, it all comes in, but it all comes in on one layer. Okay, so that is significant. You need to know that the process is not file place. The process is to open the file so that you get all of the layers, and then what you can do is select everything like that and then copy it. And then there's one very important element that you need to make sure is turned on. Right here in this little pull down menu, there are a bunch of settings for, I guess, layer control, and one of them down here is Paste Remembers Layers. So half of you probably knew about that, half of you probably didn't, but I think that, I mean, it took me way too long to learn about that. So if you just make sure that that's checked, then you can Control V and place it here, and then just start scaling it up to fit. Whoops. Don't do that. Let's see. Get rid of that. Now, the scaling process is weird. It's a little tedious, but I just tend to kind of test fit it to a point where, and I kind of like overstretch it. I kind of do like I try to map a corner in the bottom left and then go to the other side, and then I try to just map that corner. And then I just keep going until I get it relatively close on the width, and then you can start like sliding it down. It's a really weird sort of process, but it takes getting used to figure out what works best. You can nudge too with the arrows. You don't have to scale it. Okay, so that's some of our line work. I guess I'm going to pause here in this video and stop this one, and then I'm going to show you how to actually set the lines and change what the line types look like and everything, and just talk about some visual strategies in the next one. But do you guys have any questions yet?
Could you show us again where do you find the check mark on the layers?
Yeah, it's this little button in the top right corner of your layers panel. So if you don't have your layers panel open, if you have like stroke open or something like that, you got to click on layers and then go to this little menu that's all the way down the bottom. Paste Remembers Layers. Any other questions? Okay, we got the cool stuff coming up.